In today's video, I'm going to take you through the legal ways to avoid stamp duty, because frankly, overpaying on tax isn't something I think any of us want to do, but also I'd be genuinely surprised if any of you are aware of each and every one of these loopholes, which is exactly why I want to get this knowledge out there. And in case you don't know me and are wondering why the hell you should listen to me, well, I've spent my life since 2012 building a UK-wide home buying company, British Home Buyers, estate agency, British Home Sellers, and my own personal property portfolio. So not only does that give me the inside scoop and access to information you probably don't have, but understanding all this stuff is essential to mine and my clients' success. So let's get into it. I've broken this video down into 8 core sections, so you can jump between them dependent on if you're an investor or a residential buyer. But it goes without saying, if you action any of these strategies, speak to an accountant to triple check you're going about this properly. The first is trading or flipping properties. So if you are a property trader or a home buying company like my company, British Home Buyers, then you can get exemptions on stamp duty in the following situations when you're trading property, but typically no exemptions from that 3% surcharge stamp duty. The exemptions are: 1, the seller is buying a new build property. So if the seller you're buying from is looking to buy a new build property, then you can step in and purchase the property they're trying to sell in the same way a new build developer would as part of a part exchange they might offer. The logic is you're assisting the market by helping people buy new builds, and so you get the exemption. The next is job relocation. So if the seller of a property you're buying is selling specifically to relocate for work, and obviously they have to prove that, then again you can get a stamp duty exemption, because again you're assisting the mobility of labour in the market. You're assisting the ability of people to move around the country for work. Next is chain repair. So if someone's sale falls through and that then would cause the collapse of a wider property chain, you can then step in and purchase that fallen through property exempt from stamp duty. The logic is because you're saving the chain, which assists the market, the exemption occurs. Next is a deceased estate. So if you're buying a property from a deceased estate, from someone that has sadly passed away, there are instances you could be exempt from stamp duty. But there is an important caveat to all of those stamp duty exemptions I've just mentioned, which is why you can only achieve this as a property trader or a home buying company. You can't go on to keep and rent these properties, otherwise the stamp duty relief would be withdrawn. You'd have to pay it. You have to then sell on these properties, you have to trade them, and the point is you want to be trading them as a profit. But you are permitted to do certain levels of refurbishment to these properties before resale, which is again, another way to boost your profitability of carrying out these sorts of property trades. But there is also limits around that. So you can spend up to £10,000 or 5% of the purchase price, whichever is greater, without incurring additional stamp duty. However, the amount is capped to £20,000. Also, the money must be spent on works that enhance the property's value. So you could give the property a repaint, refresh the kitchen, a bathroom, and then resell it, but you couldn't change the boiler. Next is purchasing 6 or more properties. Buying 6 or more residential properties in a single transaction can help you benefit from non-residential stamp duty rates, which are typically lower and importantly exclude that 3% surcharge. So suppose you plan to purchase 10 properties as part of a rental portfolio expansion. These properties may be owned by different sellers, but importantly, you've got to be located in the same area and acquired within a short time frame as part of a specific strategic investment plan, provided you do the following. So firstly, you document the strategic plan outlining the acquisition of these properties as part of a single investment strategy. That's important, single investment strategy. 2, coordinate the transactions to occur within a specific period. So you want to ensure it's within a specific period of time and they're all commercially linked in some way. 3, work with legal tax advisors to draft agreements and provide evidence that the purchases are all interconnected as one single strategy. Then you can prove and substantiate that the purchases are all part of a single commercial strategy, meaning it applies for HMRC's criteria for linked transactions. So look, clearly there is work involved here to get this to work properly, but if you're serious about expanding your portfolio but buy at least 6 properties all at once, then this could save you a huge amount of money. This is obviously definitely something to sort with your accountants if you're serious about making this work and making sure it's done properly. The next is buying a company instead of a property. So instead of buying a property directly, purchase the company that owns the property. This is considered a transfer of shares and therefore only incurs a 0.5% stamp duty rate rather than the obvious higher stamp duty rates. So I know it may seem unlikely you're going to be able to find people selling properties within companies, but you'd be surprised because the reality is since the introduction of Section 24, there has been a massive uptick in the number of investors that buy and own properties within limited companies. So this is going to become more and more common in my view, as and when property investors that accumulated all that property within buy-to-let property companies exit the market, as in some instances it will just make more sense to come in and buy the portfolio within a company and save on all that stamp duty rather than just buying individual properties within it. The next strategy is if you're buying properties under £40,000. So there's no stamp duty due on properties that you buy for less than 40 grand. This includes both the stamp duty tax rate and that 3% surcharge for buying additional properties. Obviously, this isn't going to be helpful to anyone buying property down south where it tends to be quite a bit more expensive, but there are high growth areas up north where you can buy property down at this sort of level and that yields really, really well. 5 is separate chattels from a property purchase. So what are chattels? Well, chattels shouldn't be confused with fixtures. So chattels are things like freestanding ovens, blinds, curtains, light fixtures, white goods. Whereas fixtures are things like boilers, radiators, built-in kitchen units, built-in cupboards, sinks, baths, plug sockets, all that kind of stuff. So to reduce your stamp duty when you're buying a property, you should separate the value of the chattels from the property value in the contract, as you don't pay any stamp duty on chattels. 6, commercial properties for conversion. Buying commercial properties is exempt from stamp duty and the 3% stamp duty surcharge, but instead you're liable to non-residential stamp duty rates, which are quite a lot less. So you can buy a commercial property with the purpose of converting it into a residential property. This is becoming more and more popular as the planning laws around converting commercial into residential have got more and more relaxed. In fact, at the moment, I'm currently looking for a commercial property I can convert into a residential home for myself for this exact reason, so that I don't pay the stamp duty nor that extra 3%. But also you can add a lot of value to the property, converting it from commercial to residential. The next is mixed use properties. So mixed use properties, again, like commercial property, are taxed under non-residential stamp duty rates, which are clearly lower and do not include, importantly, that additional 3% surcharge for additional residential properties. So again, with the commercial property market suffering at the moment, there are just loads of properties with, for instance, a shop on the ground floor, an apartment above, that can be bought at far better prices per square foot than an equivalent sized, already converted residential property. So not only can you get better prices per square foot, even take consideration the work you need to do, but you're also saving on that stamp duty in the process, and you've got an asset you can add a lot of value to by converting it into residential. It's that sort of stuff the property market is going to become more and more about. 8, uninhabitable properties. So this is one where people trip up on big time and end up with massive stamp duty bills because they think if the property is uninhabitable, then you pay non-residential stamp duty rates, which is all correct. But then when they're challenged, they don't have the proof documented, or they've kind of misunderstood the definition of what makes a property uninhabitable. The general criteria of uninhabitable is things like the property has, severe structural issues, or a lack of basic utilities like no running water, or severe damp or roof damage that can classify a property as uninhabitable because water's coming through the ceiling. So provided you have the evidence that the property is just impossible to live in, then you can save an awful lot on that stamp duty. Ultimately, for personalised advice and all this stuff, feel free to comment below and I will do my best to comment back if I can help, but ultimately always consult with a tax advisor. I hope you found this video useful and I'll see you up here.